His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. ISKCON BBT Founder His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Praise to God, Krishna Chaitanya Munchananda Siddheti Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kundi Govardhana ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Navadip Dham ki jai. Nirpuri Dham ki jai. Nirvana Swami ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Samveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory some devotees. All glory some devotees. All glory some devotees. All glories, Sri Guru Gauranga, all glories, Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as it is, chapter 15, text number 1. Everybody okay in the ear?
Yes.
No. Who said no? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Ada Shakam Ashwatam Prahur Avyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yas Tam Veda Sa Vedavit Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit Yastam Veda Savedavit Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Urdhva Moolam, with roots above, Adha, downwards, Shakam, branches, Ashwatam, a banyan tree, Prahu is said, Avyayam, eternal, Chandamsi, the Vedic hymns, Yasya, of which, you speak English? Yeah? Yes, did I say yes? Of which? Yes. Parnani, the leaves. Yaho, anyone who. Tam, that. Veda, knows. Saho, he. Vedavit, the knower of the Vedas. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Purport. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. We can start off our discussion of this verse with that portion of the purport, because this is a very significant statement that Srila Prabhupada is making. He is saying that anyone who knows Krishna consciousness, anyone who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. Can you ask them not to take pictures during the class? Especially this one right here. So, that is also expressed in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it is stated, Tesham satadayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. That anyone who is engaged in loving transcendental devotional service, he is given by the Lord all that he needs to know Maybe you should put down there. But you shouldn't put paintings on the floor. You know, that's not good to put paintings on the floor. Yeah, that's better. You should always put a cloth underneath the paintings, and then you can put the painting down, like that. Because these paintings are windows to the spiritual sky, as Prabhupada used to call them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is manifesting so that we may see Him. No, that's okay. So therefore it is His prerogative to be visible before us as He likes. So we should be very careful not to put Him on the floor. We should always put Him on some mat or some sheet or cloth. That's the best way to do it. So it is stated that anyone who is engaged in loving devotional service with love, of course, is the most important thing. Priti purvakam. Priti means love. Sometimes we engage in devotional service, but without love. We forget about the emotion required. If you love somebody and you serve them, then it is very important that that love that you feel for the person manifests in the activity that you are performing to please them. It's like there is a statement in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that if There was once a lover who gave to his beloved a flower garland. But the flower garland had some mud on it. Because you know that happens sometimes when you're traveling and bringing things from here to there. Sometimes, unfortunately, it gets stained a little bit. So that happened to this garland. But the lover did not see the mud, did not care about the mud. Because all she saw was the love which caused the lover to give the garland. That's very important. When we actually have love for Krishna, we want to serve Him and we want to love Him more. Therefore, we always engage ourselves in such a way to satisfy Him, despite the fact that our particular bodily situation may not be the best at that particular moment in time. Because you know, the body, it sometimes becomes disturbed when it's too cold, or too hot, or too wet, or too something or other. The body becomes disturbed. And at that time, when you are very disturbed, it is sometimes hard to remember the loving relationship you may have with someone else. And that is certainly true in Krishna consciousness as well, whereby sometimes one who's very much physically disturbed may not remember Krishna very nicely. Now, of course, the opposite may also be true. And for pure devotees, it is always true that when one is engaged in devotional service over longer periods of time, then these opportunities to serve under distress become very welcomed. Just like Queen Kunti, when she was in the forest with her sons, the Pandavas, for 13 years, she was feeling rather blissful. Because she always had Krishna in her heart. Krishna was always very close to her. And in fact, when the battle of Kurukshetra was won, and Krishna was about to leave Hastinapur and go back to Dwarka, his city, Queen Kunti said that better let the troubles come back again and again, because then I shall see your lotus feet again and again. But now that everything is fine and all our enemies are killed, now you are leaving us and going to Dwarka. And for Queen Kunti, the most important thing was that Krishna was there. She had the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For her, that was the most important thing. And physical safety, gain, or any material quality which we normally think is very nice, had no value to Queen Kunti, because she was a pure devotee. You can just see the difference between a pure devotee and one who is not on the purified platform. Actually, there's a verse which explains this. Tate nukampan sushamikshamano punjane vatma kutam vipakam Ritva Bhavavir Vidadan Namaste Jiveti Yo Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhak. This verse says that when a devotee is in distress due to great physical problems, mental problems, social problems, he immediately turns towards the Lord and offers his respectful obeisances again and again, knowing full well that all of these things have happened to him due to his previous impious activities. It's his bad karma. And due to his previous impious activities, he is unable to break free from this situation. So he thinks, my dear Lord, please save me. You are my only shelter. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. To such a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead grants his causeless mercy. And to such a person, liberation becomes his rightful claim. Liberation becomes his rightful claim. He may claim liberation as a son may claim the wealth of the father when the father dies. This is the natural law in almost all places of the world, that when the father dies and then the son inherits the property. So just as that natural law is there, when the pure devotee is not disturbed in times of great distress, then liberation for him becomes his rightful claim. So this love goes very deep. Love of Krishna goes very deep. It means that despite any and all circumstances which may occur due to the material nature, material existence, or whatever, the pure devotee just goes on with his devotional service. Such a person, Krishna says, Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. I give him all knowledge. Tadami buddhi yogam tam. And what kind of knowledge? That knowledge, yena mam upayanti te, which will bring him back to me. Actually, as it is stated, Yasmin eva vigati sarvam evam vigatam bhavati. One who knows Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows everything. And one who is engaged fully in rendering devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows Krishna. Because if you render service to Krishna with full dedication, with heart and soul, that means you know that Krishna is the Supreme Godhead and that we are his parts and parcels, and our business is to render devotional service unto his lotus feet. If you don't know anything else, but you know that, you can be a success in spiritual life. If you don't know, maybe very expertly, the Shastra, Krishna does not say in that verse in the 10th chapter that we quoted that you have to know the Shastra. He says, Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. You have to be engaged with love. And then, to such a person who's always engaged in love with Krishna, he gives him the knowledge by which he may come back to the lotus feet of the Lord in the spiritual sky. That knowledge he gives. Of course, Krishna is giving all knowledge to all of us. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishtam matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna is situated within the heart of every living entity. And from Krishna come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Jnanam, knowledge, it comes from Krishna. Now, according to everybody's desires, they get a certain kind of knowledge. According to their desire. The tiger's desire is to eat raw, red, bloody flesh. So Krishna has given him knowledge and a body perfectly suited to fulfilling his desire. Even amongst the human beings, somebody may have great desires to be a learned scholar. Somebody may have great desires to be very rich. Somebody may have great desires to be very famous. Krishna is giving each of us the ability, the knowledge to attain that particular form of opulence which we want according to our desire. Krishna is very merciful. Krishna loves us. He loves us more than we love him. But we forget that. Because we don't care about Krishna sometimes. I'm not saying everybody here doesn't care about Krishna. And I'm not saying that sometimes you don't have nice love for Krishna and ecstatic devotion for Krishna. But sometimes when Maya strikes, you forget about Krishna, isn't it? Only Brahmananda Puri. Everybody else remembers Krishna. Or is he the only one honest enough to admit it? No, come on, be honest. Maya hits all of us, isn't it? Yes, yes. And we forget Krishna. We forget about love for Krishna. We forget about serving Krishna. And we think, what about me? What's in it for me? What am I going to get out of all this devotional service? What am I going to get out of all this surrender? What's in it for me? Well, hey, there's a lot in it for you. That's a fact. We can give you the example of Maharaj Chitraketu. He was a great king. And this example is given in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very long story. I won't tell you the whole story because it's not really relevant to the point of the purport. But he was instructed by Angira Muni and Narada Muni when his son died untimely. And Maharaj Chitraketu was given a mantra by Narada Muni, which he chanted constantly for 1 week and fasting for 1 week. And after that week, he gained a secondary result of his devotional service, which was that he was elevated to the position of king of the Vidyadharas. Now, there are many kinds of living entities in this universe. Human beings are kind of in the middle. And above human beings, there are many different kinds of living entities. And one of them, in the higher realms, is called a Vidyadhara. And Maharaj Chitraketu became the king of the Vidyadharas, and he attained a duration of life of many millions of years. And he was given an airplane by Vishnu, which could fly anywhere in the universe. And he was always surrounded by beautiful women, with which together he always chanted the glories of the Supreme Personality of God. And this was a secondary result of his devotional service. Secondary. It was not a primary result. It was a secondary result. The primary result of devotional service, and that which was experienced by Maharaj Chitraketu a little later, was when he saw Shankarshan face to face. You know, there's Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and Aniruddha, the four Chaturvyuha, the Vishnu Murti forms of the Lord, which are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. Sankarshan is the first expansion from Lord Balaram, who was the first expansion of Lord Krishna. Maharaj Chitraketu saw Sankarshan and offered prayers to him, and he spoke to Chitraketu, instructing him very nicely. That was the primary result of his devotional service, that he attained ecstatic, loving devotion in face-to-face contact with the Supreme Personality of God. That was the primary result. But the secondary result was also very significant. If you're thinking, what's in it for me? Then there's an example where something very wonderful is in it for you, if you are that kind of a person. If your desire is, what can you get? Then you can get everything from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because He is the giver of all benedictions. That is the nature of the Supreme Lord, the giver and granter of all benedictions. Just like Dhruva Maharaj. You have that book? So now you've read about Dhruva Maharaj. I hope you're reading the books, aren't you? He worshipped the Supreme Lord for getting an incredibly opulent kingdom, even more than Lord Brahma's or his grandfather Swayambhuva Manu. He wanted such a great kingdom. And Krishna gave it to him, just as he wanted it. Of course, later on he realized he didn't want it. Swami Pitatosmi Param Navadajache. My Lord, now I have been looking for pieces of broken glass instead of searching for the most valuable gem. And when I have seen you, my Lord, there is nothing that I want anymore. But Krishna, Vishnu, knowing Dhruva's desires, gave him a planet which was never to be annihilated, even when the universe is annihilated. Dhruvaloka, the Svetadvipa planet. So, just see what secondary results are there in devotional service. Therefore it is stated, akama sarva kamo va moksha kama idaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusha param. Whether you have all desires, no desires, or you desire liberation, if you are intelligent, you will immediately engage yourself in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you are intelligent, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the granter of all benedictions. Everything that you want can be given by the Supreme Lord easily. In fact, Prabhupada once said, the Supreme Lord can give you the whole world in 18 days if He wants. Of course, I doubt very much He will do that, at least at this point, because we can't even manage our temple. But if we learn actually how to be proper servants of the Lord, how to properly engage in devotional activities, then the Supreme Lord can grant us unlimited opulence if He wants. But that is not necessarily good for us. To get all that opulence, it's not necessarily the best thing. Because after all, we may forget Krishna in that opulence. It has happened. Sometimes a person becomes very opulent and he forgets about Krishna. He forgets about the Supreme Personality of God. He actually forgets Krishna because he thinks, I have so much wealth, so much opulence, and I will use it in service of my senses. Therefore, I do not need anybody else in this world. I do not need Krishna. I can do everything myself. This is a very dangerous thing. Therefore, Krishna does not always give eye of the king. Krishna does not always give opulence to the devotee. Krishna may give if the devotee will use it properly in his service. But he will never give to a neophyte who will forget Krishna because of his opulence. So, the point we were trying to make is, and this relates back to the original point, that if you love Krishna, then there's nothing you cannot attain. And what to speak when we say nothing you cannot attain, it also means there is not any knowledge you cannot attain of the Vedic literatures. Just see the gopis. They were pure lovers of Krishna. They were not Vedic scholars. Yet there was nothing unknown to them. Nothing unknown to them. They knew everything because they knew Krishna. And because they knew Krishna, everything was within their grasp. So therefore, as Prabhupada says here, the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. We only got through 3 lines of the purport. So tomorrow, we'll start again with chapter 15, verse 1, and continue the purport where we left off. And at this point, I'd like to answer any questions that may be good questions, of course. The questions? They want to send them up on paper, as usually we do? Usually that's better, that we can not take the questions which are terrible. Not everybody has a pen. Vajnath can translate. You have a question? What do you mean work? It means service. Service, well, there's a subtle difference between work. His question, you heard his question, right? Okay, there's a subtle difference between work and service. Active service. Active service. Active service, and the other point was emotion. They're linked. You can't really have one without the other. If you didn't love your spiritual master, or you didn't love Krishna, or you didn't love the devotees, how could you work for them? That's okay, but he never forgets why he's doing it. It's like the mother. The mother sometimes gets no peace taking care of the child. The child demands all her time, all her attention, all her energy. And the mother just has to work like anything for the satisfaction of that child. But although the mother has to forget completely sometimes what she's doing, just service, 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 she never forgets that this is my beloved child. That's always there in the back of her mind, or in the front of her mind sometimes, especially when child is sleeping. So, that was a joke, you're supposed to laugh. Thank you, thank you. So, I guess it's not a joke here. Children, I'll explain the joke. Children are so rascals sometimes. But when they're sleeping, they look very beautiful. Therefore, the parents, they like very much to see the children when they are sleeping, because then all their rascal activities have stopped. Now do you understand? Yes, bad joke, wasn't it? Okay, you can't get good jokes all the time. So similarly, the devotee, there's no use giving to me because I can't read. Some paper is coming up. Give to Kalamal, or give to Krishna. So similarly, the devotee, he always has in his mind what he is doing for Krishna. He may be fully absorbed in his activities, but he knows, I'm doing this for Krishna. And therefore at night, he will just fall asleep completely exhausted, thinking, I am doing this for Krishna. And every morning he wakes up enthusiastic, thinking, I am doing this for Krishna. And therefore his life is completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and he only wants to serve Krishna, even though, like Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. I remember Prabhupada once asking, do you think Arjuna was peacefully meditating on Krishna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? He was shooting arrows. He was killing people left and right. And he was avoiding arrows that were being shot at him. He was 100% engaged in the war. But he knew in his heart, I'm fighting this war for the sake of Krishna. Although he was fully absorbed in his activity, he knew, I'm fighting this war for the sake of Krishna. And then that always was there in his heart. Always, at every moment. Okay? But only a neophyte. Not somebody who actually loves Krishna. Somebody who doesn't have love for Krishna, he may become overwhelmed by the work. That's possible. Somebody who has love for Krishna, he'll always know, no matter how much work he's got, why he's doing it.
Действительно, никакие эмоции. Он понимает, что он делает это для Кришны. Может это быть.
What about the one who's just working without feeling any emotions, but he knows perfectly well that he's doing it for Krishna, and he needs to do that?
Arjuna, he was not in ecstatic love for Krishna as he was shooting arrows. He was in Kshatriya Bhava. But he was always deep within doing it because of his love for Krishna. And later on, when he thought about how merciful Krishna was to save him in that battle when so many dangerous things were going on, his ecstatic love just erupted like a volcano. Sometimes these feelings of ecstatic love can be a hindrance to your service. Therefore, pure devotees push away the feelings of ecstatic love. Just like Daruka was fanning Krishna. Daruka is the chariot driver of Krishna. And his feelings of ecstatic love were so great that he found that he could hardly fan Krishna due to the feeling of love. He considered those feelings to be an obstacle in his devotional service. So he pushed them aside just so he could go on fanning Krishna. Because the most important thing to him was the service of fanning Krishna, not the feeling of ecstatic love. That is a very high platform.
А как мы можем определить сентиментальные или чувства по отношению к духовному учителю или Кришне, или это истинные любовные отношения? Как можем определить, какими критериями сентиментальные или чувства духовного учителя, как определять, или это действительно любовные отношения?
Wait, what? This question is asked probably more than most other questions are asked. Very common question. And rightfully so, in one sense, because we should try to be real in our love. and not sentimental. So yesterday, the same question was asked in Helsinki. Like I said, it's a frequently asked question. So, sentiment is something which changes. Sentiment is something which changes due to the arrangement of the external energy. Whereas actual love does not change. It remains steady. Yesterday I gave a very good example, but I can't remember it today for some reason. What did I say? Gee, I can't remember. That's terrible. Okay, let's say you've got a sentimental attachment to your spiritual master. And, can't hear? I'm answering his question, he can't even hear it. Let's say you've got a sentimental attachment to your spiritual master. So, then you think, oh, spiritual master, he's always smiling and always happy with me, and always everything is nice and lovey-dovey and all perfect. So I'll serve him. And then one day you do something really stupid, as happens sometimes. And the spiritual master takes out his club and beats you over the head. You idiot! And then the test is there. If you're sentimental, then you'll think, what is this? I thought he was a pure devotee. Pure devotees don't get angry. He always used to smile at me. Now he's hitting me on the head with a club. I think I'm going to go try some other movement. That's called sentimental love. And real love says, yes, what mercy. I have been beaten over the head because I'm a fool and a rascal. And I have displeased my spiritual master. Therefore, I'm a nonsense number one. Let me do anything to correct the situation and please him. That's love. That's also intelligence. Understand? Any good questions over there?
If our devotional service is conditioned with desire of secondary result, is it possible that we will get the secondary result and will miss the primary result and forget Krishna?
That's a good question. But Krishna is not a fool. You may be a fool for desiring material gain from your devotional service. If you are sincere, that's the main point now. If you are sincere, then Krishna will most probably take away everything from you, leave you completely penniless, and grant you his lotus feet. If you are not sincere, and all you really want is the secondary result of opulence. Krishna may give you the opulence, but not his lotus feet. Krishna may also give you causeless mercy and force you to surrender to him. It depends. Depends on how the Lord thinks about you, what he thinks is best for you, what will actually be best for you. Krishna knows because he's experienced. He's not like us, foolish. We're foolish. We don't know what is best for us. But Krishna knows what is best all the time. That is the nature of Krishna. He knows always what is best for us and always does exactly what is best for us according to the perfect time, place, and circumstance. Isn't he nice?
Is it possible to avoid secondary results, and how dangerous they may be to service and fast?
There's a saying in Bengal, God has 10 hands. If he wants to take away something from you, what you can keep with your 2 hands. And if he wants to give something to you, such as these secondary results which are being asked about here, then how with your 2 hands you'll be able to take it all? That answers the first part of the question. What was the rest?
Can it keep us?
If Krishna wants you to have something, and you really want to serve him, then that which he gives certainly will not be something which hinders your devotional service, because Krishna will never do that. If you are sincere to serve him, Krishna will give you everything you need to serve him. That's his nature. It is the pastime of the Lord to fulfill the desires of the devotees. Therefore, you should be very careful what you desire. If you desire something material, Krishna may just give it to you. And then you will feel very embarrassed.
Srila Prabhupada left 4 principles in his course. Truth, preaching, purity, and utility. Will they always be in the same order? Or maybe the time may come when the books and preaching will be not so important.
My God. If there's a time when the books and the preaching are not so important, I hope I'm long gone. Because that means we're all in heavy Maya.
How the person who has no intelligence can do devotional service?
Well, that's what sudras are meant for. Of course, sudras have their own kind of intelligence. They know how to do things very nicely, like build machines very nicely and do all kinds of arts and crafts very nicely. They have that kind of intelligence. So it is not that sudras have no intelligence. They have intelligence. But it's not the same kind of intelligence as a Vaishya to make money, a Kshatriya to protect and control and a Brahmana to teach and educate and to be philosophically minded. The question is a little strange because nobody has no intelligence. There's no person who has no intelligence. Everybody has some intelligence. Like I've spoken of this before, but I came to understand this in various ways by meeting people. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to work, believe it or not, in an incinerator for garbage. I used to weigh the garbage and then give the bills to the garbage companies, what they had to pay for the garbage that we were burning in the incinerator. So that was my job. So I had to contact all the time garbage men. Do you have garbage men here in Russia? Yeah? So you wouldn't think that they were very intelligent, would you? All day, all they do is pick up the garbage and throw it in the truck. Stinky, rotten garbage. So it's not a very popular job. It's not considered a very high-class job for men with intelligence. But I found that garbage men were some of the most sensitive and meaningful people I ever met. Can you believe that? Like I would meet them at the window. We had a window. And I would weigh their truck and they would give me the weight of their truck, would be painted on the side, and I would write their bills and they would sign them. Sometimes we would talk. And they would say the most amazing things sometimes. Like it was incredible what these people would think about while they were driving a garbage truck. About life, about people in general. I was once in a taxi cab in New York, going to get a visa to go to Argentina. So I had to take a train, and from the train to the embassy was quite some distance. And so I took a taxi cab. So I was wearing devotee dress like this. So the taxi cab man, he was driving, and he was really talking like a dull person. But he turned to me and he said, you people believe that there's life after death, don't you? I said, yeah, I do. We do think like that. He said, yeah, I think like that too. Definitely this life is not the only life. There's life after death. And it's very good. You don't want to kill animals. This is very nice. A cabbie, a taxi cab driver, ordinary fellow, dull, you thought. This is a dull, unintelligent person. To be a taxi cab driver requires no brain whatsoever. You just have to have a map of New York City in your head. And somebody says 33rd and 3rd Street, you just drive your car there, avoiding getting hit by the buses and the other taxi cabs. Simple job. And yet this man was very intelligent. I don't believe that nobody has no intelligence. No, I said that wrong. I can't believe that that no one has any intelligence. That's the way to say it. Everyone has intelligence. Even the ant has intelligence. But what does he use the intelligence for? Where is sugar? He has great intelligence. I always used to talk about this. In my room in Mayapur, I'm 4 stories up. And yet the ants from the bottom down, all the way down, figured out I had a jar of honey up there. And they all came up, hundreds of thousands of them, forming a line to get that honey and bring it back down again. They knew where the honey was. How they figured it out, I'll never know. They're down on the ground, 4 stories down, these ants are. 4 stories. Can you smell honey 4 stories away? Can you smell honey when you're in the next room? But 4 stories down, these ants knew I had a jar of honey. Incredible. And they knew exactly how to steal the honey too. They made a skinny little line. They didn't come in a big wave, because I would have noticed them. If 3 meters of ants were coming in my room, I would have noticed I'm being invaded by the ants. But they were very smart. They knew we go in little line. And we'll go along the sides of the wall. Where the wall meets the floor. Right there, they're going. And they're sneaking around my room. And they come up in the back. And then they go into the front. And then they come over the furniture. And then they get the honey. And then they go back the same way. Sneaking here and there and everywhere. They're very smart. Don't tell me ants are not smart. Very, very smart. But they're ants. They don't know physics. They don't know languages. I don't know, maybe ants talk to each other too. But they're smart in their own way. Prabhupada once told me that every creature has the same intelligence. It is only manifested in a different way according to the body that creature has. According to the body, each individual has a different kind of intelligence. The hog's intelligence, the ant's intelligence, the bee's intelligence, the bird's intelligence, the human being's intelligence, the demigod's intelligence, all are differently manifesting according to the body, according to the modes of material nature. It's wonderful how Krishna has arranged this world. Everybody has his intelligence. So I cannot accept that there's somebody with no intelligence. Therefore, we reject this question. No, I'm only joking. Now, what was the question? That's okay, go ahead. Next question.
If you devote to make devotional service in the temple, that doesn't make sense. He doesn't realize connection with of his service to the spiritual master. And if the service doesn't develop his attraction or attachment to the spiritual master.
Everybody who does devotional service should understand that he's doing it under the direction of the authorities in the temple, who are working under the direction of the GBCs, who are working under the direction of Srila Prabhupada. And all the spiritual masters are there just to encourage the devotees to serve nicely under the authority structure of ISKCON, or to serve them according to the way in which they have given them directions to their disciples in certain circumstances. So therefore, it is very important to always be in contact with the instructions received from the spiritual master or from the authorities, because this is the way in which one performs what is called authorized devotional service. When you perform authorized devotional service, it means that you are doing not according to your own concoctions devotional service, but under the order of the higher authorities. And that is very important. We should always work under the order of the higher authorities. We should not work independently. That doesn't mean everybody has to live in the temple. Some can live outside the temple or near the temple and perform their services while having, like householders for instance, may live outside, may even work, have an occupation, but they have a mission given to them by the higher authorities, which is to utilize the profits of their income in order to preach Krishna consciousness or build the Mayapur project or some wonderful mission which has been given by Srila Prabhupada. So everybody can be engaged in Krishna service, no matter where they are. Also, we want more and more people in the congregation. Not everybody will be able to live in the temple. When this nice temple is completed, maybe 250 people can live here comfortably. But more will want to be Krishna conscious, so what to do? We will encourage them to live outside the temple, nearby the temple, and to come here, because the temple room can handle many more than 250. So they all come to the temple, worship the deities, very beautiful deities we have, which we'll install by the end of the year, when the temple and everything is completed here. And everybody will come and worship Sri Sri Gauranatai, worship Srila Prabhupada, worship their spiritual master, and in this way try to expand Krishna consciousness more and more in the surrounding congregation and in the devotees who are working outside for the satisfaction of Krishna. And in this way, we can expand things always, increasingly more and more. And in the temple, if you're living in the temple, certainly you should think, my whole duty is to just do my duty so nicely that I will satisfy my spiritual master. When my temple president writes to my spiritual master and says, this devotee is doing very nicely, the spiritual master will become very satisfied and say, thank you very much.
How is it important for us neophytes to cultivate constant remembrance of the image of Krishna in his body? Or we should just for the time being serve the mission of the spiritual master and everything will come regular for the meditation?
Yes, the second option is the best. You just serve the mission of the spiritual master, but that means you will chant and hear 16 rounds minimum of the Hare Krishna mantra every day. You will read the books of Srila Prabhupada every day. You will come to the programs in the temple every day. You will do these things which always bring you remembrance of Krishna. So simultaneously, while performing works for the overall preaching mission, in the sadhana bhakti process, one will be worshiping and satisfying the spiritual master, and at the same time developing his dormant ability to remember Krishna. Because there will be so many things to remind him of Krishna.
There is prediction of about third World War.
Oh my God. I mean, this prediction is so funny. Somebody says there's going to be a war, and everybody says, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh no, oh no." I have no idea if there's going to be a war or not, but it seems to me that there's not going to be a war. If it's supposed to be in July, it had better hurry up because it's not doing very well right now. To have a war, you've got to have problems, conflicts, tensions, and they have to build up over periods of time, gradually. Where are those problems? Where are those tensions and conflicts? It is not so bad. Maybe in the Middle East there'll be some war, I don't know. That is a tension place. I don't know. But we're doing quite nicely here, aren't we? Let's just go on. Don't worry about these things.
If circumstances of life, obviously took away already health and how to avoid disappointment or depression, and how to get safe.
When one has very bad health, I have realization of this one. This can be very disturbing. Why? Because you cannot actively serve Krishna as nicely as you would want to. So therefore, you get depressed. Oh, I can't serve Krishna. I can't run around and do so many things for Krishna. Okay, that may be true, but there's something you can do for Krishna. And that you should do. You should figure out what you can do according to your situation. Now maybe it's so that Krishna is making you sick so that you can sit down for once and read the books of Srila Prabhupada. I saw that happen to me in India once. In 1972, I became very sick. And in 1973, it was so bad that I had to go to the hospital. So, what do you do in a hospital? You just lay there. So what can you do? Very depressing. So I took out the Bhagavad Gita and started studying it very carefully. And after a while I realized, this is wonderful. I would never get an opportunity to study Bhagavad Gita like this if I was healthy and running all over the place. Because then I would never have time. And now I've got plenty of time to study these books and become knowledgeable in our philosophy. And in this way, when I get better, I can preach. You can also chant more rounds, chant very much each day, chanting, reading. You can also write. After you've chanted and read, you can write for publication. You can do many things, but it takes a little intelligence to figure out how to adjust your situation. Sometimes those who are most sick are most close to the reality of their actual material existence, whereas those who are always healthy don't understand their real position in the material world. They may think of themselves as everything's fine. And then when finally old age, disease, and death hits them, they don't know what to do about it. Whereas those who faced it through life, they understand this material world is a temporary place full of misery. And therefore they don't mind. Okay, I'll stop there. See you tomorrow, same time, same station. Hare Krishna. Jashodananda Vijaya Padam Sabribrajagacharya Satarasatasi Sima Chidani Goswami's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Sarvabhupad Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shalavidas Thakur Ki Jai Iskan BBT Foundachary's Divine Grace Sarvabhupad Ki Jai Praise the Gosi Krishna Chaitanya Bhuna Chananda Sudeta Gadadhar Sivasati Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinda Shama Kanda Radha Kundagiri Odana Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Ki Jai Napuri Dham Ki Jai Swami Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Go Samveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai All glories from the devotees, all glories from the devotees, all glories from the devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Brahma, all glories to Divine Grace Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 15, text number 1, continued. Everything okay? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Harnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavit Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavit Yastam Vedasa Vedavit Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Vedasa Vedavit. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." I'll just read that part of the purport which we read yesterday, because it was only 3 lines anyway, and then go on with the rest. Purport. After the discussion of the importance of Bhakti Yoga, one may question, what about the Vedas? It is explained in this chapter that the purpose of Vedic study is to understand Krishna. Therefore, one who is in Krishna consciousness, who is engaged in devotional service, already knows the Vedas. That we said yesterday. Today's purport. The entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. For one who is engaged in fruitive activity, there is no end to the banyan tree. He wanders from one branch to another, to another, to another. The tree of this material world has no end. And for one who is attached to this tree, there is no possibility of liberation. The Vedic hymns meant for elevating oneself are called the leaves of this tree. The tree's roots grow upward because they begin from where Brahma is located, the topmost planet of this universe. If one can understand this indestructible tree of illusion, then one can get out of it. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdvamulam Adakshakam Ashvatam Prahuravyayam Chadamsi Chandamsi Yasya Panani Yastam Veda Savedavid. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." So Prabhupada explains what this tree is, what this banyan tree is, with its roots upwards and its branches downwards. He's explaining this because this tree is very difficult to understand for one who is entangled in this material world. So Prabhupada begins this paragraph of the purport by saying, the entanglement of this material world is compared here to a banyan tree. We have heard material existence compared to a great ocean, sometimes called the Viraja River, the causal ocean, the Vaitarani River. There are many ways to describe that body of water, which is the vast expanse of the material world. But here another kind of example is being used, which is not typical. We find it specifically here in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's referring to this banyan tree as being an analogy to the material nature. Now this banyan tree is a very interesting banyan tree. It has its roots upwards and its branches downwards. That will be explained in a little later in the purport. But for now we should understand that the material nature is very entangling. Those of you who have been to India have seen what a banyan tree is like. How many of you know what a banyan tree is like? Quite a few. You have seen these trees, they're very strange. They don't have a big, thick trunk like normal trees have. But they have many, many, many branches coming up from the roots which stick together and become like the trunk. So the trunk is made of many branches of the tree which all come up from the roots in the middle of the tree. So it's like a trunk. And all of these branches, they form different other sub-branches of the tree, and it's all an entangled, complete mess. Banyan trees are very strong. In big, big winds, they generally do not fall over. Although smaller trees, less strong trees, they fall over because of the very intricate root structure they have. Very many roots, very intricate, very deep roots. And the banyan tree gives a lot of shade, has a lot of leaves. It's a very nice tree. Now, banyan trees sometimes do fall over. We had one banyan tree in Mayapur, exactly where that little bridge is, just before you come to our property. There was a banyan tree there. And in one wind, when the winds got up to 250 kilometers an hour, that tree blew over and fell down with a huge boom. So sometimes it is possible to knock over that banyan tree. Similarly, sometimes it is possible that this material world is wound up. Sometimes. It does not happen very often. Sometimes, like for example, at the end of the day of Brahma, this material universe is wound up within the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, or the interior of it, shall we say. All the planets, except for the sun and the moon, wind up within the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. All the living entities take shelter there. It's all dark in the universe. The sun and the moon are dark. And then at the end of the lifetime of Brahma, the whole universe is finished, and it goes within the body of Mahavishnu. Sometimes all the living entities in the universe are delivered, like during the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He delivers all the living entities in the universe and sends them back to Godhead. So on some occasions, this universe, which is so vast and so strong, is dissolved. But it will be recreated again. Just like when Mahavishnu breathes out, that universe which was withdrawn within his body, again is manifest. Maybe not the exact same universe, but pretty close. Filled with living entities who are the same as those who were there before that universe was dissolved. The amazing thing about the destruction is that when the creation again takes place, the creation again takes place in the same fashion as it left off. That's how Brahma gets the information whenever he makes a new creation. Sarga Visarga. The first creation is made by Krishna. That's the creation of the material universe. And then within the universe, everything is created by Brahma, who's arranging everything. So how does he do it? He gets a plan how to do it from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who instructs him how to create this universe exactly as it was before the living entities were dissolved in the previous day. Now when we say the living entities were dissolved, we obviously do not mean that the spirit souls were dissolved, because they are eternal. They are never born, they never died. They are always existing and always have been existing. But we mean that they are no longer within material bodies, within the material universe, but are now withdrawn within Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And when it is time for them to come out again, Lord Brahma creates the bodies and all the planets and all the arrangements of the material universe just as they were before, and the living entities are impregnated by the glands of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu into the particular bodies, and thus everything goes on just the way it was. Therefore it is stated, Bhutva Bhutva Phaliyate. Again and again, this host of beings is helplessly destroyed, and again, they are created once again. This is the nature of this material world. Destruction, creation, destruction, creation. It's a cycle. This cycle goes on continuously, and it continuously causes depression and exhilaration, enthusiasm and laziness, and all the qualities of the material world over and over again. Therefore, the living entity, when he gets enwrapped within the bondage of the material universe, becomes entangled in such a way that he cannot get out. That is why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Daiviyesha gunamaya mamamaya duracaya. It is very, very difficult, impossible for a living entity who has become entangled in the network of the material nature to get out of that material nature. The only way he can do it is by surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of God. Mameva ye prapajante mayam etam tarantite. That's the only way. Otherwise, there is no other way to get out of the entanglement of the material world. Once you are in that tree of material nature, you are captured. In another place, in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a description called the forest of material nature, where Shukadeva Goswami explains about the entanglement of this material world, how it is compared to a forest, how all the living entities are wrapped up within this dense network of entanglement. That you will read when that book comes out. It's a very interesting example. You may not like everything which is said within that description. But in any case, it is a very truthful description of the material world. So, the living entity wanders from one branch to another. And there's no limit to this tree. Now, in an ordinary tree, no matter how big the banyan tree is, and some of them are pretty big, you know, Lord Shiva has one banyan tree that he sits under, which is 800 miles across. So that's a pretty big tree. And there are no birds in that tree making noise. And it's very cool and very nice under that tree, so that he can have a lot of peace while he's meditating on Vishnu. Anyway, we have never seen such a big banyan tree, but the banyan tree which is being figuratively described here in this first verse of the 15th chapter is a very, very big banyan tree. It is far bigger than Lord Shiva's banyan tree. It is infinite in size, practically speaking, for the conditioned soul. Because the conditioned soul, if he tries to find his way out of the banyan tree, he will always get deviated down another branch and will get entangled within its clutches again and never find his way out. He'll always be stuck in that tree, because he's always going from one branch to another, just like monkeys. Monkeys, they go from one branch to another in a tree, jumping from here to there. But while they are jumping in the tree, they are eager for capturing female monkeys within that tree and having sex with them, or to get some fruits from the tree and enjoy their flavor. He's always trying to satisfy his tongue, belly, and genitals. That is the nature of a monkey. So, people who are entangled in this material nature, they are always enwrapped in fruitive activities. And therefore, because of that, they don't want even to find their way out of the world. And even if they want, unless they have a very, very good guide, they can't get themselves out of this material world, no matter how hard they try. You can only get out of the material nature when you take shelter of a saintly person. It is stated that the ropes, ajaram pasham, atmanam kavayo vidu. The ajaram pasham means the tough ropes, the ropes of the material nature. And all the learned saintly personalities know that the one who has taken shelter of these material ingredients, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the senses, the 10 senses, the 5 senses for working, and the 5 senses for knowledge acquiring, and the 5 sense objects, and all of the elements of the material world, he can never break free, because these ropes of material nature are very strong. Tepi satantriam urudam nibada. They bind one by the waist and do not let one go. Therefore, the only way to get out is saeva sadhushu kritaha. One should become attached to a sadhu. It's stated, prasangam ajaram pasham atmanam kavayo vidu. Attachment to the material world is certainly the cause of entanglement. But that same attachment, when it is placed upon a saintly personality, saeva sadhushu krita moksha dwaram apavrata, opens the gates of liberation. The same attachment, because you must be attached. Now that is a very interesting statement. You must be attached. One may wonder, well, here you are talking about detachment in the material world, and then at the same time you say you must be attached. Doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Yes, it makes sense, because the living entity has the nature of being attached. So he shall either be attached to the material world and the body and the senses, or he shall be attached to the spiritual world, to Krishna and Krishna's service. But attached he must be. He cannot be completely detached. Everyone is attached to something. You cannot be detached. So therefore we are saying, become attached to a saintly personality. Become attached to a Krishna conscious person. And then he will teach you how to get freed from the bondage and entanglement of the material world. That is a fact. One has to become detached, but detached from material nature, and simultaneously increases attachment to spiritual nature. Then it will be possible for him to become attached to Krishna. And then, as Krishna says, Mameva ye prapajante, mayamitam taranti te. If he becomes attached to Krishna, he can become detached from Maya and go back home, back to God. And there are different ways you can do that. Ultimately, you have to take shelter of a saintly person without getting the dust of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master or of a Mahatma, a great personality. There is no possibility of attaining the mercy of Krishna. It must be there. But if one is not yet advanced enough to come to that platform, then he can follow the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns are considered to be the leaves of this tree. The living entities are trying to climb on the different branches. But if he can accept the Vedic hymns, then he can get himself out of the entanglement of this material world. The Vedic hymns give answers. How you can act within the material world and at the same time climb out of the material world. By being attached to the Vedic injunctions, one gradually develops Krishna consciousness, little by little. He acts according to Dharma, Artha, and Kama, religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, and ultimately strives for liberation at the end. That all is the result of the Vedic hymns. Krishna consciousness, however, gives one the instruction to rise above the Vedic hymns and be situated in transcendence. Chaigunya Vishayo Veda Nishchaigunya Bhavajuna. How does it go? Nirvana Yoga. I forgot, but Yoga Kshema Atmavan. Anyway, I forgot. It happens sometimes. So, the point is, Yoga Kshema Atmavan. You should be situated above the three Vedas, above the Vedas, which deal mainly with how to interact with the three modes of material nature. And one should be above all desires for gain and safety and become situated in transcendence. Because the Vedas still deal with elements of this material existence. Although they are meant for elevation, they are not usually taken by the living entities to be the means for getting freed from the tree of material existence. Sometimes people even use the Vedic literatures to remain in the material world for long periods of time. Just like some Vedic followers, they're called actually technically Vedavada Rata. They think that the Vedic literatures are meant just simply to go to the heavenly planets and fruitive activity, and to when you exhaust all your fruitive results, pious results, and then you again fall back to earth, and you again take up the Vedic hymns and the Vedic injunctions and sacrifices, and again go back up to the heavenly planets, and in this way going back and forth on a constant journey between the heavenly planets and pious life on the earth planet, you're happy. But one thing they don't understand is that sometimes when they fall from the heavenly planets, they do not get a birth which enables them to remember that they have to perform Vedic yogas. They may forget about it. They may take birth in St. Petersburg. They may get a job driving one of these buses around the city. Of course, they may also meet a devotee who happens to be on that bus, take a book from him, and change their whole lives. That's another thing. That cannot be attained by going up and down from the heavenly planets to any planet within this material world, but it can only be attained by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagavana Jeev Guru Krishna Prasada Paya Bhakti Lad Beach. The living entity is wandering not only up and down in this material universe, but he is wandering also throughout different universes all over creation. But if he's fortunate, he will get the mercy of Guru and Krishna, and thus he will be able to have the seed of Bhakti Yoga implanted within his heart, and he will be able to take up spiritual life. And in this way, his whole existence will change. His whole existence will change. Therefore, I will read the next paragraph of this purport, which explains basically the same thing we've been talking about. This process of extrication should be understood. In the previous chapters, it has been explained that there are many processes by which to get out of the material entanglement. And up to the 13th chapter, we have seen that devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the best way. Now, the basic principle of devotional service is detachment from material activities and attachment to the transcendental service of the Lord. The process of breaking attachment to the material world is discussed in the beginning of this chapter. The root of this material existence grows upwards. This means that it begins from the total material substance, from the topmost planet of the universe. From there, the whole universe is expanded with so many branches representing the various planetary systems. The fruits represent the results of the living entity's activities, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. So the tree has its roots upward at Brahmaloka, because the living entity starts from the highest position and falls into the lower positions of the material universe. When the living entity falls from the spiritual sky, he falls directly into the material world at the highest position. Therefore, the root of all existence starts at that topmost point and grows into a great tree throughout the whole material universe. And all of the planets within the universe are situated like on the branches of the tree, hanging upside down, or like a chandelier which hangs upside down. Chandeliers don't hang upside down, but from our point of view, they're right side up. But if you look from above, they're upside down. So the point is that the planets are situated like on this chandelier, in different situations, higher and lower. So just like the tree, when the tree's upside down, the branches are there. It's just like a chandelier. So one is going from the different branches, the different planets, the different species, all through this material world again and again, until he comes in contact with Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada will explain in the next paragraph, which we'll discuss tomorrow, about the specific features of this particular process of extrication. Harikesa. Yes?
Then it is said that among those who are trying to achieve liberation, very rarely we can find persons who already achieved liberation. That refers to material world, because in the spiritual world everybody is already perfect.
Obviously, it doesn't refer to the spiritual world, because there everybody is already liberated. It only refers to the material world. In the material world, there are many who are liberated, even. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishu api mahamune. There may be many hundreds of millions of liberated persons. But amongst them, only one of them, or some of them, may be known as Narayana Parayana, or fully attached and surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. So even the liberated position is not very important in comparison to being a devotee of Krishna.
Where those who are achieved liberation are situated?
Those liberated persons may be situated within the Brahman. They may be sitting somewhere, meditating within this universe. And their minds and consciousness are simply absorbed in Brahman. It is not just on Earth planet. On Earth planet, I don't think there are so many such liberated souls. But on other planets, there are plenty. Tapaloka, for instance, is filled with liberated persons. Hiding behind the flowers. Yes, now you are doing devotional service which is mixed. Mixed, called either Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti. This means devotional service which is mixed with fruitive desires or empiric speculation. When you engage in pure devotional service, the first symptom of pure devotional service is that one is immediately liberated from all material miserable conditions. So that form of liberation, in fact, it's even said moksha lagutakrit, it mocks liberation. Pure devotional service mocks liberation. Liberation is considered so inferior to pure devotional service. So the first thing is pure devotional service frees one from all material conditions of suffering. So long as you still are being attacked by the material world, then you can understand your devotional service is not yet fully pure. And not yet fully pure means there's some fruit of desires there, or some empirical desires there for becoming one with God or something like that, becoming supreme. But don't worry, that by taking up this process of Krishna consciousness, that will also be gradually purified. And you will, in this lifetime, get the mercy, especially if you do something wonderful for Krishna. Then you can get Kripa Siddhi. That is the mercy of the spiritual master Krishna, and you get the immediate results of devotional service, even though one may not have performed properly the devotional activities. But don't count on it. That is very rare. Generally one has to go through sadhana process, sadhana siddhi. Gradually perform the sadhana bhakti process and then come up to the process of purified devotional service.
In one of your lectures you said that 99.9% of disciples are useless.
I never said that. That's nonsense. 99.9% of my disciples are useless. I'm useless. Huh? Why should we continue? This is completely nonsense. My disciples are very nice. If I called them useless, it was a loving expression. I never said 99.9%. I don't believe that. I never thought that.
I don't know, the question is how to become useful and consider useless.
For people like me who are no good for any practical work, we're useless. All of you who are engaged in the Sankirtan mission, who are preaching Krishna consciousness, who are trying to make this temple very nice for the satisfaction of Sri Sri Gaura, you're useful.
What is the difference between prasadam by initiated devotees and
Actually, you cannot offer in the temple to the deities food cooked by uninitiated devotees. The Lord does not accept it. You must be initiated to work on the fire. And this is a very important rule to be followed.
What is the difference between false ego and polluted consciousness?
Polluted consciousness is false ego. That means I think myself something other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What did I say? I think myself something other than the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If I think of myself as anything else than the servant of the Supreme Lord, then this is false ego, and my consciousness is polluted. And why do I think that way? I think that way because I have desires for enjoyment as if I were the enjoyer, which means I think I'm not the servant of the Lord. So therefore, these two things are so intricately connected, you cannot extract them. Although technically, in the list of material elements, ego and chaita, or consciousness, are considered to be, this ahankara and chaita, considered to be two distinct elements, but in fact, you cannot have one without the other. They're so intricately connected. The reason why they're separated in that way is because the false ego is a material ingredient created by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, and the chaita, or the contaminated consciousness, comes from the soul's desire. Therefore, their origin are different. Yet, the contaminated consciousness embraces the false ego. That's why I use this. And therefore, makes it its own.
One should act according to his nature, but if how to say, but if it hinders development of his sadhana, or the Buddhist, and his service.
Well, let's say you've got the nature, let's say right now, you have the nature just like a pigeon. You want to have sex day and night, night and day. And that is what you understand as your nature. So, should you rather act according to your nature? Or should you rather act according to the instructions of the spiritual master and become purified? That decision you have to make. When you make that decision and you take to be purified, then you give up the lower nature and attain a higher nature. Now, if you were, perchance, when asking this question, meaning that you were, for example, by material nature a Sudra, and you think for some reason that this will mean you can't advance in devotional service, then you're wrong. Anybody in any platform of life, Krishna says, Sve Sve Karmani Abhirata Samsiddhi Navate Nara. Anyone can attain perfection performing his particular service according to his nature under the 4 varnas. You can go on serving Krishna and be very satisfied, just doing some simple material activity, which we might call Sudra activity. And at the same time, because you're doing it for Krishna, it's purifying, you are advancing in devotional service, and you are attaining the qualities of the Vaishnava. So there's no hindrance. It doesn't matter what your material quality is. There's no hindrance to establishing the spiritual qualities. You can establish the spiritual qualities. There's no problem. It doesn't matter what your material qualities are. You may be anything. Just like Lord Chaitanya spoke this very famous verse, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Kani Sudra Noi, Se Krishna Tattva Veda Ye Krishna Tattva Veda Se Guru Hoy. If you are a learned Brahmana, or a sannyasi, or amazingly enough, even you are a Sudra. If you know the science of Krishna, you're qualified to be a guru. I hope that answers the question.
In my book this year, you said that...
Uh-oh. Look out. I said, Look out. Okay, here it comes.
You said that it's not enough to develop knowledge and do some job for Krishna, but it's important to develop Vaishnava quality.
Yes, I said that.
Could you explain what does it mean?
I did explain in my report in great detail. If you heard that, then you must have heard the rest of the class too, where I explained in great detail for the whole class, or many series of classes, how you've got to develop Vaishnava qualities. Of course, that happens to a certain extent automatically. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarvai gunai tatra samasate sura. If you are engaged in bhakti yoga with full determination under the direction of your spiritual master and satisfying Krishna, you will naturally develop all the good qualities of the demigods. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But you also have to endeavor to develop those good qualities. Just like tolerance. The best way to develop tolerance is by tolerating. You've got to practice. It's not something that just you wake up one morning and all of a sudden you're tolerant. You have to try. Just like if you want to be kind to others, you have to try. In the beginning, it may be artificial, but you have to learn. It's like a small child. A small child, when he has a pet, the first thing he wants to do is hit the pet, because he cannot really understand anything very well. So he hits the pet with his hand like this. And then the mother takes the hand and strokes it on the, let's say the cat or whatever, and says, do nice, do nice. And in this way the child learns how to take care of the cat. So we're in the very childish condition, filled with bad qualities. We have to learn how to develop the good qualities. So therefore, spiritual master and the Vedas sometimes tell us how to act. How to act, what we should develop. And we should strive to develop these qualities. It's very important. Otherwise, we will remain very low class and be very attached to whatever it is that we are doing and however we do it, which is not the best thing.
Some people ask how to invest in the social soul. What does it mean? should we understand it?
First of all, when one is a neophyte devotee, he cannot see the Supersoul in the heart of other living entities. Therefore, because he knows the Supersoul is there in the heart of other living entities, he can address the Supersoul in his heart, asking him to please inspire in the other person's heart Krishna consciousness. In that way, you can communicate with the Supersoul in the heart of every living entity. By requesting the Supersoul in your own heart, you can just pray to him. You may not see him, you may not hear him, you may not know that he's there even, but you know he's there because he says so in Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. I'm there in the heart as the supreme controller of all living entities. So, he knows. You know that he's there because you heard from Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, you can pray to the Supersoul, my dear Lord within the heart, my dear Supreme Lord who is within the heart of all living entities. Please help me to speak nicely, to inspire that living entity who stands before me to accept your mercy. Now, of course, maybe sometimes that may not happen the first time. I know many examples from my Sankirtan days in New York that I would meet a person and I would try to get him to take something and he would say no. But when he walked away, he was thinking maybe I should have. And the next time somebody met that person, he took it. And sometimes he explained it also. Sometimes we meet the same people. I remember once on a subway in New York City, one man said that I've met you people at least a dozen times. And each time I've said no. But finally my curiosity is aroused. Here, give me a book. So even that will happen. And the Supersoul is there saying, come on, you didn't take the last 12 times. This is not good. See how sincere this devotee is trying to get you to take a book. Come on, take the book. You should do it. And then he's thinking, oh, why should I take a book? And Supersoul says, no, no, no. You should just take one at least. And read it. And he says, oh, all right. That is a managerial decision I don't want to just say right now. It has to be determined together with all your very qualified leaders. Ranjan Maharaj. Both are good. After all, there are many forms of preaching you can do from this temple. You're already doing prasadam distribution, and that's very good because we have to support the temple economically. This temple is in terrible economic condition. And by the mercy of the devotees, they are building up this place. by I think the mercy of Brahmananda Puri Prabhu and Brahmika Prabhu, you are getting the money to build up this place. As a gift, you should be very thankful to them because they have so nicely taken up this service to help you. So, you have to support this place. That's your responsibility. And whatever it takes to support this place, you should do. The first duty of every devotee in this temple is to help maintain the temple. Some may do it by prasadam distribution. Some may do it by spice distribution. Some may do it by Prema Invest activities. Some may do it by book distribution. Believe it or not, you can even maintain the temple on book distribution, but only if you're very good at it. Otherwise, you should do these other things. We want more books to go out, but if you're not very qualified to do that in the present situation, then do something else and support the temple very nicely. It's very important. We all have to pull together to support this temple. It's a great temple. And when it gets opened and it's all finished, immediately everything will change. Everybody will be living here who has to live here. The beautiful temple will be open, the deities will be installed, the service will be going on nicely. The kitchen will be beautiful and clean. And in this way, you will be very inspired. Now it's a construction site. I know it's very hard to be inspired in a construction site. As for me, I'm very inspired in construction sites because I live in them all the time and have to deal with them all the time, especially in the Mayapur project, which is one huge construction site constantly. And when we start that temple, it's going to be a gigantic construction site. The whole place is going to be upside down for 15 years. You have to see the future. When you see a mess, you should think of all that mess in its proper place. And then you say how nice it will be. And then you're very inspired by that mess. Because you'll see in due course of time, mess will become something beautiful. So the mess is the precursor to the beauty. Without mess, you can't have a beauty. Beauty doesn't just walk in the door, you know. It has to be put there. And to put it there means a mess. So you should be inspired by that mess. I know this is a unique way of looking at the situation. But if you can look at it this way, you'll be very happy in the mess. I'm just trying to help, that's all.
I can choose from my ashram or on the pasta, and now I get follow forever principles.
You cannot. One has to be very careful when he takes up Grihastha ashram that he does not become melted by the fire of lust. One may think when he's a brahmachari that he's a very hard butter, a really frozen solid butter. But when he meets the fire, no matter how frozen solid he is, he melts. Therefore, one has to, in the beginning especially, be very careful about staying together with the wife. one should have separate living arrangements. Not living arrangements, sleeping arrangements at night. Separate room is the best thing. That will be very helpful for maintaining the regulative principles. That's the way in Indian civilization they generally did it in the old days before everything became contaminated. At least the Brahminical class. The ladies would have their own room, the men would have their own room. And in this way, they could maintain the principles nicely. So that is a suggestion that Srila Prabhupada has made for grihastas to have a good chance to maintain the regulative principles.
How can we find our proper place on Vajrayana? On the real spiritual.
How can we find our proper place in the tree of the spiritual world?
Yeah, on the real tree.
On the real tree. Well, your place is already there. You just have to realize it. And the way to realize it is to engage in this process of Krishna consciousness. And this is a how can we question, and you can fill in the rest of the answer yourself. Got any other how can we questions there?
How the feeling becomes or joins to the Krishna consciousness? Is it through karma or?
No. It is not your karma that you become a devotee. There is no such material karma that you can become a devotee. It doesn't exist. This activity is purely the mercy. Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lakta Bij. It is purely the mercy of the spiritual master in Krishna, or of a devotee. Leaving Krishna consciousness is not because of bad karma. It's because you are not following the process of Krishna consciousness properly or surrendering to Krishna. This may be due to the fact that you're very conditioned, yes. But it's not the fault of either Krishna or Krishna consciousness. It may be your very incredible conditioning. That's another thing.
What is contamination? What is gross and subtle?
Contamination generally means the unwanted things which we accept on our consciousness according to the dictates of the senses. Just like one can contaminate his mind very nicely by contemplating the objects of the senses. And when you contemplate the objects of the senses, attachment arises, and at that point you are contaminated. So whatever this object of the senses is, which you can contemplate, if you continue to contemplate and meditate on it, you become attached and contaminated. And then when you act to satisfy your senses, according to that attachment and contamination, then you contaminate even more. It is stated that everybody, man and woman in this world, is attached to each other because that is the nature of men and women, to be attached to each other. But that attachment is not so great as the attachment that comes when they actually get together and enjoy the senses in direct connection And when this happens, then they are more attached or most attached. So just contemplating the senses and becoming attached to them is one form of contamination. But when you actually act according to that attachment and satisfy the senses, or try to anyway, by activity, then you become really attached and really contaminated.
Now, astrology has become very popular. But it's known that people should be hard. And doesn't mean it's so devotee, astrology doesn't know or not very correct.
Devotees have a very special kind of relationship with Krishna. And Krishna, what he does is that even if you're going to have something have to happen to you according to your karma, Krishna reduces that or expands it, if it's something good, according to that which will be best, either for yourself or for fulfilling Krishna's desires for his mission. So therefore, some or most, practically, astrologers don't know this point, and therefore they cannot understand from the chart exactly what's going to happen. But astrology is a Vedic science. We cannot deny it. They used charts for Maharaj Parikshit, for example, to find out he would be a very great king, and exactly what was said, that's what happened. But nowadays, that great science is practically going down and down and down. And you find all kinds of cheaters presenting themselves as very great astrologers. And in this way, you get all kinds of bad results. And because of the bad results, which were improperly given to devotees in the past, Srila Prabhupada told a couple of devotees to please don't go to astrologers, forget about this, because you're getting bad advice and it's just screwing up your head. But when there's a very qualified astrologer, and he will tell you, for example, you're going through a bad period now, the best way to solve this problem is to chant Hare Krishna very sincerely and overcome this problem by surrendering to Krishna and serving Krishna more. Because you're a devotee, that's your whole life. When you get an instruction like that, it can only inspire you more. But if he tells you, you've got to wear this kind of a ring with this kind of a stone, and by the way, I just happen to sell these rings, and for you, no profit, I can give you a ring for, a couple of $1,000 cheap, or something like that, then you know you're being led down the path of that rosy path that leads to bankruptcy. What? No! Who was asking that? This is bogus stuff. Oh my God. Shoot!
How we can understand different opinions in sadhus?
What does it mean, different opinions amongst different sadhus?
Sadhus have different opinions on the same subject.
Buyer beware.
If devotee has hesitated for chanting,
Good, good.
no, and please control his senses.
Wonderful, wonderful.
But if he his desires are not satisfied,
If one likes to chant Hare Krishna, if one likes to serve, one controls his mind and his senses, everything's fine. What do you mean, advance more? You're already doing fine. Just keep on going. Nothing to worry about. Just keep on going. That's this whole Krishna consciousness movement is based on that principle. Keep on going. Even if it gets tough, even if it may be very difficult, even if you don't understand why, keep on going, because you'll get to the point of success. Absolutely. Just keep on going. We have that saying in German, which Rohini Sudaprabhu loves to say, Einfach weitermachen, Mensch. Just keep on going. Sounds much better in German. Okay. Tomorrow you'll be very lucky to hear one class from His Holiness Naranjan Maharaj, which are much better than my terrible classes here. So you'll be very inspired. Then tomorrow night, same time, same station, you can hear another terrible class. Then you'll get rid of me. Hare Krishna.